This is probably the most important video that I'm going to make in regards to actually winning a race. How am I going to explain that? Well, I've got 6 tips on how to conserve your energy so that come the end of the race, you have the most amount of energy available. This is based on my favorite tactics on Zwift and also using the pack dynamics that are currently in place. So what am I talking about in regards to efficiency? For those who don't know, there's a website called Zwift and it shows all the information post-race. As you can see here, for the race, despite winning the race, I did far less average power than anyone else in the top 10. Even the top 12, there was a 4.6 watt per kilo. Now, you could argue that I was probably a heavy rider than most, but you can see 4.6 watts per kilo, this person's doing 295 watts. Now, I'm not having a go at any of these riders in the race. This is what I see on Zwift, and many others do as well when they pay attention, that there's a lot of watts being wasted by riders because they're positioning in the pack. They're doing far more watts than those who do win races. It's been very close. It's only been 1 second in the race, but I have won the race with 2.8. That's the whole category below in terms of power ratings if you go off the traditional power. So how did I do that? But number one, you need to learn to dangle. Once you've learned to dangle, you can do so much more on Zwift because of the energy that you save. So what do I mean by dangling? Here's an example of me in a race. Now, it's not going hard, but the important thing about dangling is you maximize your recovery. So at the moment, you can see that I'm sitting at the back of the group and there's quite a few riders just all mingled up. At the moment, it's spread out. So there's 4 or 5 riders that are hitting the wind and they're doing an extra 30 or 40 watts simply because they're just riding an individual time trial right now. Yes, they're not going as hard as they can, but the thing about energy is that the less you can do, the faster your energy rebuilds. So at the moment, I've got a bucket. This bucket is being filled up far faster than the people in front of me. I'm doing 1.5 and everyone else is doing at least a half a watt higher than I am at this stage. Now you can see I'm quite far behind. I'm dangling a few meters off the group, so they're making sure they're not getting any sticky draft. Difficult thing about dangling is you need to practice it so you don't get dropped, because one of the things that I see often in my streams is people say,
I can't dangle because I get dropped.
I'm not strong enough to dangle. But this is where you need to practice and also have the guts to dangle, because you're always strong enough to dangle. If you can sit in the group near the middle or towards the front, you're strong enough to dangle. You're actually using up more energy where you are than if you're dangling. But you need to practice, because what people fear when dangling is that they'll get dropped as the pack splits. So you don't want to be dangling in a group of 100 near the back at 100th place, obviously, because you've got to ride through all that distance if the group splits up. But you need to learn when you can dangle and when not to dangle, when to go hard. So tip number 2, don't overshoot the group when everything's coming back together. You know what I'm talking about? When it's gone hard and then everything settles back in, everyone's coming back together, what will happen is people will just cascade through the group, hit the front. Now that in itself isn't going to hurt you. Doing it one-off is fine. It's not going to matter. But if you constantly overshoot the group after every time it gets hard, you're using up a little bit more extra energy in your bucket. Just a tiny bit, but it's enough that it accumulates over time. So what do I mean when I'm talking about overshooting and overboosting through a group? The group's all coming back together again, and you'll always see this. You'll see riders just shoot through to the front as they're making sure they get back in. They've obviously got more speed, more momentum. This isn't bad per se. There is circumstances where you want to do this and it's an advantage. But if you're trying to save as much energy as possible, the best thing you can do is just ease up as I am here. Just a couple of bike lengths back and just use that momentum you've got just to roll through into the group. Ease up on the pedaling because you don't want to get a sticky draft. As you can see here, I get almost to the front. I probably went a little bit further forward than I was hoping. It's just the group was going quite slow. And then start the pressure back on the pedals as my momentum has slowed and I'm the same speed as the group. Now, why you don't want to push through is because when you hit the wind, it's like a parachute. You'll suddenly lose momentum, and instead of going faster than the group, you'll be going slower than the group. The group will roll past you again, And then you have to build up the momentum. Now you can, depending on the circumstances, that's not going to hurt you too much. But you do need to use a little bit of energy in that bucket if you're yo-yoing through the group like that. Now, as I said before, just one time, that's not going to matter. But imagine if this is after every single strong attack. You keep hitting the front, keep slowing up, the group goes past you again, you've got to accelerate again, take more energy out of your bucket. Tip number 3, learn to read pack flow. When you read the pack flow, you'll be able to be a lot smoother on the pedals, because as you're dangling at the back, you'll be able to know if you do need to start putting pressure down on the pedals, or if you can just ease up. Looking at the rider at the front, or the riders at the front, relation to your momentum. So this is especially important if it's stretched out, lined out across the road, down the road, and you can see that they're starting to accelerate away from the riders that are in front of you. You can then start putting the power down before that gap grows between the riders in front of you and the riders ahead of them, so there's no gap growing. Conversely, the same thing, if you can see the riders at the front are all slowing down and the riders that you're with are actually accelerating towards them, this will help you stop over boosting. So you're reading the fact that your momentum is faster than those front riders. So you don't have to worry about keeping that pressure on the pedals. You can just relax, knowing that you're heading towards the front of the group and you don't need to accelerate to follow the riders ahead of you who are accelerating, unless it's an attack. But that's where you need to learn to read the group. Point number 4 is when you do attack, don't attack from the front, strike over the top. So what am I talking about with that? Is don't attack from the front. If you attack from the front, all you're doing is just dragging the riders with you, because they've got your draft, they can see you accelerate, they will respond in kind, and they'll hold your wheel. So all you're doing is just being a lead out for the riders ahead of you. You're pushing the wind. They've got a massive watt savings. They've got like 80 to 100 watts saving whilst they're sitting in your wheel. So you need to do just 100 watts more just to start moving away. But as you accelerate and they accelerate, you're pushing even more and more wind, using up so much more energy. So if you do want to attack, the best time to attack is what we call over the top. Now here's an example of a very soft over the top attack. The best time to do this is when the race is going slow, not during the hard times when everyone's using energy. This is likely in a situation where everyone just wants to recover. No one wants to work. People are less likely to follow your attacks when this happens. So as you can see, the group is kind of spread out at the moment. But as we come around this corner, the person on the front decides, okay, I really don't need to be doing this power. And everyone starts concertinaing. Now I've got a little bit of momentum here. So what do? See how I'm passing through these riders? I just keep the power on. I put a bit more power and I'll just keep rolling. And now I'm just rolling away. I'm not attacking especially hard, but I had that momentum. And then if I stop it here, I have that momentum. And for them to then chase, they have to, if you go back, because I do have the watt draft on here. Okay, so at the moment you can see I've got 120 watts, 128, we're going up a slight hill, so it's backing off, but I've got 80 watts here to build this momentum. I lose a bit as I hit the wind, so now I'm just getting a little bit of a draft, but that's gone now. But I've built that speed with 100 watts of draft. The people who then have to try and catch me, because I got enough up the road that they're no longer drafting me. So to be able to then build the speed up to get to my point, they have to pay that penalty of 100 watts that a draft, 100 watts that I was getting for free in the draft, on top of getting to my point. That's where you can hurt people with efficiency. I'm attacking, yes, but all I'm doing is going, okay, right now I'm going to create a deficit in my opposition by more watts than what I had. So my energy bucket is going to stay a little bit more full compared to them. And if I keep doing this over and over and over again, I'm going to steadily dig into their bucket. Now this brings me to point 5. You don't need to go in all in for attacks. In fact, definitely don't go in all in for an attack early on, the first 10 minutes of the race, as I said. The best thing to do that I've found is to go in soft. As you can see, this one, it's a soft attack. I've got a gap, and now I'm riding at about my FTP. If they want to chase me, that's fine. I'm quite happy for them to chase me. And what they do is I'll burn into that energy bucket, as I say, and then when they catch me, they start getting my draft. I just ease off again, fall back into the dangle position, and then just wait again a minute or two, depending on the situation. And then I'll repeat. So rinse and repeat. If I do that 3 or 4 times, that's going to eat into my opposition's energy bucket so much. The attack that I do that's full on, but yes, I might be hurting a little bit because I've also been putting efforts in, but I've also made sure the opposition isn't fresh. And so they'll be less likely to chase. And also there'll be less cooperation. If you're constantly making these little attacks and they know that they're going to bring you back, then they're less likely to try and chase you. They'll let someone else do the chasing because they're not worried. But this is where you can lull the opposition to a false sense of security. And it's actually one of my favorite tactics. Do these little attacks over and over again, get 3 or 4 done before the last 2 kilometers of a race. Attack over the top, but attack hard. Attack with everything you've got. It's a time trial between now and the end of the race. You want to finish that race in the fastest time possible. And hopefully, because you have attacked hard, the riders behind you will just look at each other and think, someone else can chase that down. We've chased it down already. And then before they know it, you've got such a big gap that they're going, okay, actually, that rider's gone. We're racing for second place now. I'm not going to chase for sure because I'm not going to drag anyone up just to win the sprint for second place. You've gone, you've checked out. Everyone else is just meandering along until the last 500 metres of the race, trying to position themselves so they've got the best chance for a sprint. And you can just cross the line, do your wave, your hands, whatever, and think that you're an absolute genius. And then finally, that brings me to point 6. Fully commit when you deal the final blow. It may seem counterintuitive. You think, oh, I just want to save a little bit of a sprint for the end just in case I do catch. But the reality is you don't want them catching near the end. You want to put it out of their mind early. Put all your energy in you can. As I said, it's a time trial from when that moment you go bang. You need to get to that line in the shortest amount of time. That way you've ensured that you're giving yourself the most chance. It might not work. In fact, a lot of the times it doesn't work. But you need to do these things to be able to know, okay, this is the best time to go is right now. Or that's too late now, I can't go. I've got to now save myself for the sprint. The worst thing you can do on Zwift, I see a lot of people do, which is just meander along, staying in the pack. But of course, as you can see, everyone spreads across the road, doing just below their FTP, thinking, this is not too bad. I'm not hurting too much. But the riders behind me probably are because we're pushing the pace. But you're not pushing the pace. You're pushing your pace, but the riders behind you in the draft, if they're doing their job properly, they're recovering the whole time.
Getting fresher and fresher. And so they're ready to pounce and destroy you.
You don't need to be the strongest rider in the group. What you need to do is make the strong riders hurt. Make the strong riders do the work. Sometimes it might just be a race where you just dangle the whole race. But don't be afraid to learn to dangle. Once you've mastered the art of dangling, all the other strategic moves fall into place. The attacking over the top, using the momentum in the group to push through on the hilly bits, on the rollers. If you can learn to dangle, you can win a lot more races. You can hurt a lot stronger riders. So I hope you enjoyed that video, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace out.